All right, welcome to Learning with Merit. Today we're going to talk about while loops in Python. I'll make this real quick. So, first of all, when we use a loop in programming, it is because we are trying to do something repetitive, and it prevents us from having to rewrite code or do something over and over and over ourselves that we could just have the computer do over and over and over for us. It also takes something that could, be very large to write and makes it much smaller. So let's take a simple example, counting up with a while loop. So what we might have here is we have a start, a stop, and a step, and that's going to be very important in our while loops. So the first thing is we need a variable to store where we're going to start, and then it needs to change as we go so that eventually we can stop the actual loop. And what you'll see count shows up several times here. So here we have count. And let's start, we're going to count to 10, so we're going to start at 1. So count equals 1. Then we're going to come down here. Here's our while loop header. And this is going to tell us when we're going to stop, right? So while count something, right? Well, we're going to continue going while count is less than something. Or you could also use less than or equal to. It depends on which you prefer. If we use less than or equal to, we would say while count is less than or equal to 10. Just like that. And so it would go from 1 to 10, and it would stop after it gets to 10. We could also just use less than. If we use less than, we would have to use 11, though. That way we would get to 10 and include it, but not go past it. So just like that. Then, very simply, I'm just going to print out count. You'll notice that we're inside the while loop because we're indented here. We're indented under this, so we're inside the while loop. This is not indented, it's outside the while loop. And this is the basic form you're going to see. This is the stuff we want to do, but we will always have a start, a stop place, and a step place. Now the step here, you'll see I'm saying count equals count. And if we want to go up, we're going to add. And how much do we want to go up each time? Well, we want to go up by 1. Now there's actually a shorthand for this because it gets irritating writing this out. Instead of writing all of that right there, we would just say plus equals like that. So now we're going to start at 1, we're going to end when we get to 10 here, and we're going to go up by 1 each time. And what are we going to do as we loop? Well, we're going to print out the value of count so that we can see it. So I'll hit play here, and we'll see what we get out. Alright, so it throws a couple of errors at us. We're going to clear this output for us. Make sure that we save and hit play. Let's try that again. So if we look at this, and this is all old stuff, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just like that. So it counted up for us from 1 to 10 just like we wanted. Now let's say we wanted to count down. We wanted to count down with while loops. Well, we would start at where we wanted to count down from. So let's count down from 5. That's pretty simple. Then when do we want to stop? Well, we want to stop after we get to 0. So we say while count is greater than or equal to 0. Then we print count out. And instead of adding 1, we want to subtract 1 because we're going down. All right, so we scroll down, we find our last thing. So here we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Doing exactly like we wanted here. Now one of the things you may notice is it starts on a new line every time. And that can make it kind of irritating. So one thing we can add in our print statement here is a comma. And then we say end equals, and then just add a space in quotes there. What this does is it changes the end from a new line to just a space. And so if I save this and rerun it, wait on it for just a second, now we see it all on one line here, which is a little bit easier for us to read. So that was counting up, counting down. You can use this with any numbers. If we wanted to, let's say we want to count up by 5s. So I want to count up by fives. And let's go to 1,000. Let's go to 1,000. So we start where? At 0. Where do we stop? At 1,000. So we say less than or equal to 1,000. What are we going up by? Well, we know we're going up, so we got to add a plus. We're going up by fives. So it's plus equals 5 every time. So start at 0, stop at 1,000, go up by fives. Give it just a second here to run its code, and you'll see it come down here. It starts at 0, goes to 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. We end at 1,000 though, going up by fives. And then the text editor is real nice for me. It goes ahead and actually wraps around stuff so that we can see very easily. What if we wanted to count down from 1,000? Well, we could do that. So let's say counting down by fives. Where do we want to start? At 1,000. When do we want to stop? When we get to 0. So we say greater than or equal to 0. What do we want to do? Go down by fives. So we got 5 correct, but we want to go down, so we're subtracting. Minus 5. Let it run, scroll down here. We look, there we go. We're going down by fives every time. Going down by fives every time. Just like that. Next, let's say that we have a little bit more complex problem. Let's say now that we want to count to 3 10 times. So we want to count to 3, then count to 3 again, then count to 3 again, then count to 3 again, over and over and over, right? Well, we might want to use something called a nested loop. Let's first look at this. We want to do it 10 times. So where do we start at? Well, we start at 1, right? Where do we end? We end at 10. Want to make sure that its while count is less than or equal to 10 because we're going up. Here we have print, and we're gonna copy that, set it to the side for a moment, get rid of it. And then here we have count. What do we want to do? We want to go up by 1 every time, right? Because we're basically just counting to 10. So that sets us up to do something 10 times. But then we need to count to 3 when we do that. So what we need to do is we need to create a nested while loop. And what nested means is a loop within a loop. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new variable. So instead of count, we might say count to 3, like that. Count to 3. And that's going to equal, well, we want to start at 1, right? So you'll notice we're creating another while loop. So the next piece, we got to write our while. While count to 3. Where do we want to stop? Well, when we get to the number 3. And how much do we need to go up by every time? Well, count to 3, like that, plus equals 1 every time, right? Make sure I fix that down there with count, plus equals 1. So now you'll see here's all the stuff for our nested while loop. So what we're going to do is every count of this, every time we count 1, we're going to count to 3 here. So it's going to go 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? And so let's show that that's actually happening. I'm going to say print count to 3 right there. And then what I'm going to do is just so we can see, I'm going to say print. I'm going to say print count, the very beginning there. Now the reason I'm doing that is I want you to see the value of count, and then I want you to see the value of count to 3 every time. Okay? So what I'm going to do is instead of end like this here, we'll just get rid of that, and it'll print count every time for us. So now let's go ahead and save that and hit run. Scroll down here. All right, so here we go. We've got 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. Let's actually add another little thing here. I'm going to add another little print right there just so that we get a new line and you'll be able to see it. So now it's going to run again. All right, here we go. So we've got 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, all the way to 10, doing 1, 2, 3 each time. So it's counting in this loop and then doing everything in this loop all the way till it's done, then going back up and doing it again. So it's a loop within a loop, and we can get even more. We can get loops within loops within loops. We could have 3 whiles here if we wanted to. And it gets more and more complicated. But every time, you'll notice there's a start, a stop, and a step. And here's our start for the inner one. Here's our stop. Here's our step. Right? And then inside that, we have everything we wanted to do. You'll also notice that the step part is always at the end. It's the last thing you do in each of these. There are times in which that's not what you want to do, but most of the time it is. All right, this is a basic introduction to while loops, and there will be more to come, but thank you for watching.